Hey folks, Matt McQueenie, Mix Minus Podcast. It is Tuesday, March 26th. I wanted to come at you in kind of a quick hitter because Apple had a big announcement, big event yesterday, March 25th. And the teaser was it's showtime. And the big showtime, I think, was because they had a lot of Hollywood elites there. They had a new television endeavor that they were putting out to try to compete with a lot of the streaming TV that's out there. But they also had a couple of other major announcements. It all had to do with services in this one. There wasn't a hardware announcement unless you want to consider the credit card that they announced, unless you want to consider that to be a hardware, which I guess you could. It's a real-world device. But everything for this announcement was software, was services, and it's really where Apple has to go. They don't have a big choice in the matter because they've really maxed out on all the hardware they can sell. I mean, they kept talking about the fact that their devices are in, 1.4 billion pockets. I mean, how many more devices can you really sell? And how many more devices of those can you really upsell to the newest and greatest that Apple has to offer? And at some point, you just have to figure people have something. They have the device. There's only so many improvements you can make to those devices. They've really picked off all of those improvements. And you need to move to services because services are recurring income, revenue. They're a way to have money coming in month after month. When you think of music, when you think of television, when you think of media, services can really, I mean, you can even think of iCloud that way. Services are an important piece to having money come in regularly, to getting money coming in regularly off of all of those devices that have been bought. They don't want people going to Spotify for their music or DirecTV Now or YouTube TV for their television. They want to be kind of pulling in that money to their services when the people have their devices. Why give away those services? So that's what Apple's big announcement was yesterday. The first off was Apple News Plus. Many people use Apple News. I don't think they realize that they're using it. It's so built into the phone or the tablet. You know, you swipe left to see sort of the widgets screen, and news is firmly placed there. And Apple does have human curators behind what is showing in that news, so that is a good thing. They have actual journalists, I believe, and editors that they have hired to take all of the news out there and to kind of not just let an algorithm show it, but to have humans curate what news goes there. So it's a really good service. A lot of people use it. It's a solid entry point to all the news that's out there. I tend to use the app Nuzzle, which I find to be really good, but Apple News is really good. Now with Apple News, they were not selling subscriptions to anything though. You could authenticate subscriptions you already had. If you had the New York Times, if you have the Washington Post, if you have magazines, if you have the Economist. So you could authenticate in there, and then those outlets would appear in your Today screen on the Apple News screen. But the big piece that Apple announced was this Apple News Plus. I think it was in the last year or two, Apple bought the company Texture. Many people have probably used Texture. It was sort of the Netflix of magazines. That's what it was billed as. You could pay one flat fee per month and you would have access to all the magazines you can imagine. We're talking about 300 plus magazines. Now, when you come to realize what 300 plus are and how many really matter, you're probably looking at about 10, 12, if I could really be generous, maybe 20 magazines of that 300 that truly matter, that truly are what you want to watch. Watch. I was using the Netflix example there, what you really want to read. But still, when you think about the fact that you're paying $10 a month, $15 a month, that's a big savings to get all of the access to those magazines. Now you realize a lot of magazines are owned by the same handful of companies. So once Apple was able to strike a deal with each of those companies, then whatever Apple's paying them for the access, they're able to pass on kind of that savings to the consumer. So what Apple News did is they came out with this new tab in the Apple News app, Apple News Plus, got the plus sign. And you get a free trial at first with the newest 12.2 iOS upgrade yesterday. $10 a month after the first free month. You have access to everything. It's a beautiful interface. It's an Apple interface. And there's a curation aspect even to the Apple News Plus, and you can sort of subscribe to the magazines you want so that they keep coming in. Now, I don't love the way it's done in the app because you sort of have to find the outlets in this kind of left-hand navigation or in the show or in the channels navigation. So you have to find the outlets and then you have to hit the heart to like them, and then they're in your queue there. I wish there was more of a way to almost subscribe to them once you have this service so that you could sort of follow them without having to go through that step. I'm sure Apple will get there. There's going to be a lot of QA coming once all of the consumers get access to this, once all the free trials come into play, and once Apple sees how many people don't re-up after the free trial. They're going to learn a lot, so this service is going to get better. But I had Texture several years ago. I would have it for a month or two. The one thing it did give me is I became a regular reader of The New Yorker after getting Texture. Now, The New Yorker, if you were to subscribe to that by itself, if you wanted digital, it's like $100 a year. And if you wanted digital plus the hard copy, you're looking at $120, $130 a year. So when you divide that by the 12 months in a year, you're looking at $10 a month just for The New Yorker. So Texture was the way that I got into The New Yorker, and it has become the magazine I read every week. It's the one constant. I love The New Yorker. It gives me all the kind of news I want, pop culture, politics, kind of world affairs, movies, television, everything. And it gives you in a beautiful package on a weekly basis, and it's written almost like someone would write a novel, would write fiction. And I don't mean fiction as in fake news. I mean with sort of the level that fiction writing is written in. The facts are real when you're reading I was just reading about Jair Bolsonaro, the president of Brazil. Tremendous article, about a 50-minute to an hour read. Just a tremendous article. You get the full backstory on everything that has to do with that subject, and it's written like you're reading a novel. Just a tremendous job. So when you look at something like that, and then you're thinking I could be paying $10 a month for that, and then you add in all the other things that you could get from this within the Apple interface, it could be a good deal, because I still like to read Sports Illustrated. Again, it has the New Yorker in here. It has New York Magazine. It has Time. It has a lot of magazines that you probably would not subscribe to, but that you might read a good article from. But I think it's a good product. I found with Texture that I almost felt overwhelmed by all of the access to magazines I had, that they were continually coming out and I could never keep up. But I think I'm going to change my outlook on how I utilize this app. I'm just going to know the magazines I want to read on a weekly basis. So we're talking The New Yorker, Sports Illustrated, really those two, and then this has access to the Wall Street Journal too, which is pretty good. And then I'm just going to kind of pick and choose from the other outlets that are available there. I'm going to let the curated stream kind of guide me towards what I might want to read. Last night I was reading New York Magazine, which I don't usually read. There was a great long article on podcasts and where the podcasting boom is at this time, and I thought that was a good article. So does it mean I have to read the whole New York Magazine? No, and I don't feel as kind of anal about having to read it at this point. But I like that this app gives me access to that, and I like the product, and I like the look, and I like the content. So I am in on the $10 a month. I sent in my note to cancel my New Yorker subscription. That's outside of this, and we'll go from there. So I really do like that. And I think it's a good thing. Now, is there a need to be reading magazines? Is it a dying industry anyway? Possibly. I mean, I'll tell you one thing. I've talked in the past about the magazine I write for, Newark Bound. Just got a note yesterday that they're going to discontinue that magazine. So after 7 years, that magazine's not even going to go forward. Something that had a true niche in the community here that I thought was doing well enough to subsist itself, and it apparently wasn't. So people aren't dying to get into magazines, but great magazines, great content still needs to be found and still can be found. And if you can pick and choose the outlets you need to read and people are still subscribing to them and paying for them, then they're still going to be worth your time. I do find that with the New Yorker. So even at its base, just paying the $10 a month to get access to the New Yorker in a clean, beautiful interface through this Apple News app, that might be worth it for me. And then I can pick and choose all these other outlets that I want to access. the coolest thing, even though this was all about services, it was all about what Apple's going to be bringing to consumers for a monthly fee. When we're talking about the news I just spoke about, we talk about the television, which we'll hit in a minute. The thing that was the coolest announcement was this Apple Card. So I've been using Apple Pay pretty much since it opened. I use Apple Pay all the time. I have my American Express as the backing for Apple Pay, and I would say 95% of the time I use my watch as the method to pay Apple Pay. I love it. Anybody who has it, I just use it. It still feels magical to me. I think it is a tremendous service and just seamless. It's really, really good. Now, Apple, they see how many people use it, and they came out with a new product yesterday. As I joked about the newest hardware product they have, they teamed up with Goldman Sachs, and I think they said MasterCard. Is that what it was? Yeah, MasterCard. And they're going to allow you to sign up for an Apple credit card in your wallet app, in the Apple kind of Pay in the wallet. It's the wallet app. And through that, if you pay with that app, which you already do through Apple Pay like I do, if you use the Apple Card as the backing, for anything that you buy, you get 2% cash back. And that cash back is placed into your Apple Pay account every single day, daily cash. It's kind of a cool idea. I'm sure somebody's doing this idea. I'm sure people who follow the credit card industry, they're going to say, oh, that's nothing, whatever. I never heard of this. I have not been looking and scouring the credit card market to find better and better deals. I have probably pretty dumbly just had an American Express card where I have to pay $100 a year, and then I have to pay back my credit card every month. You can't carry interest over from month to month, which is good. It's something I've come to expect, and I just pay it. It's just what you have to do. But I've never gone and looked to credit cards to pay more than I'm putting in on a monthly basis. But Apple, being a market-changing force, being a company that has vied with places like ExxonMobil and other tech giants to be the largest company in the world. When they come out with something, even if it's somebody else's idea, even if someone else is doing it better, when they come out, you watch. And so through this app, it's going to be easy, seamless to sign up for. You're going to get 2% every day, 2% cash back on what you pay with that card. And then if you buy Apple things, it moves to 3%. And then the really neat thing, because this is, of course, what I was wondering, what about the places that don't accept Apple Pay? Now, so many places do, but there's enough that don't. And what if a place doesn't accept Apple Pay? You're going to have to be pulling out your American Express or your old credit card that you've had. And what Apple did is they said, no, we'll come out with a credit card. And so they're actually going to have a titanium card with your name etched in laser on it. Of course, Apple has to really pull out all the stops. And you will actually be able to use that card as a credit card in the traditional way. And anything you buy will get pulled into your account, and you will get 1% back on anything that is used with that card. So you're always getting the cash back. Now, Apple says there's no fees. There's no late fees if you don't pay. The interface on the back end as a consumer dashboard it looks tremendous. So they use machine learning to tell you what every purchase is. Because like I use American Express, if I go through my statements, there's going to be probably 50, 60, 70% of the things I don't even know what they're talking about. Even when I click for more info, it's like some it doesn't make sense as to what you bought, and you almost need to do Google searches to figure out what that vendor entity was that you paid for. You're almost doing like investigative work to figure out what that payment was. And so when you're doing finances with your wife or with someone where you split expenses, you sometimes don't know what an expense is, and you have to do a lot of research. So Apple is apparently going to be able to tell you clearly what every expense is, down to using the maps to tell you where it was bought, and machine learning to tell you exactly what that purchase was. So there are applications out there like Mint, maybe Betterment. I think there's apps that basically take in all of your financial institutions and then make a nice dashboard for you. So Apple's going to do this based off of the card, and I'm really excited about this. I can't wait to get an Apple card, and I can't wait to just use this. They even have a way to tell you if you kind of spread your payment out, and it's like really nice looking touch interfaces, how your interest will affect you over time by waiting to pay for things. So it'll tell you how much the interest means in dollars. So I am really excited about this. I'm going to do this. I'm probably going to pull away a bit from the American Express, so I don't have to pay that fee. The points are great, but the points become pointless over time. A lot of times the value of those points diminish, and it's really just up to the people involved with American Express how valuable those points are at any one time. I've paid for some things on them, but after paying $50,000 on a card over time, or $100,000 on a card, and all you get is a couple of nights at a hotel, it doesn't feel like enough. Now, I'm not saying this Apple thing is going to be meaningfully more, but I think, one, it's going to be cool to not have fees, and two, it's going to be really cool to see the daily cash you accrue every single day put back into your account for purchases, especially Apple purchases getting the 3%. So if we're talking about these services, if you start paying for services from the TV app, premium services like HBO or Showtime or Stars, if you pay for Apple Music, if you pay for iCloud, if you use this Apple card to do so, you're going to be getting 3% back on all of those recurring services. So it's kind of a neat thing. Now, 3% back on like what, I forget, like $40, only like $1.20, right? I don't know if that's right, but it's minimal, but it's more than you're getting otherwise. It's a nice little it's a nice little positive attribute to getting this. So I'm very excited about doing this. The credit card also has it doesn't have credit card number, a CVV, a signature, or expiration date. It says you can generate one if you plan to buy something from a site that does not support Apple Card but needs a 16-digit credit card information. So this was the most exciting part of yesterday's announcement for me. I don't know. I was just really excited because I love Apple Pay. I always joke it would be better if it was Apple's money or part of Apple's money that was going towards the payment, because whenever I buy something, someone always says, "Oh my God, that's so cool. That's so cool how it works. It's magical." And I say, "Yeah, but it's still my money." It would be great if it was Apple's money. And now it's sort of going to a little bit be Apple's money. When you think about the 2% you're always going to get back when you use that app. So I am very excited about that. It's bringing credit cards, I think, a little bit more into the future. And whether other people have been doing this stuff already, who cares? Apple is the first time I'm coming into contact with these features, so I'm going to go with them. I believe in their ecosystem. I believe in their security, and I'm going to be excited. It's almost like the Tesla of credit cards in a way. Apple Arcade was announced. This is sort of a service for video games on the mobile devices, whether you're talking iPhone, iPad, or into the living room when you're talking about the Apple TV. I'm not into games as much, and getting into games would be dangerous for me, especially when I'm going to be going back to school. So if you're into that, it looks like it could be cool. There's a lot of kind of exclusives happening between Apple and these game developers. The one I'm really excited about is, or the one I'm really focused on, is the Apple TV announcements. So first off, they came out with Apple TV channels. So you can subscribe to channels through the Apple TV interface. And the problem is the channels are not that cool, except for HBO, Showtime, and Stars. And then the others are just, I don't know. They're not great. I mean, I guess PBS is there, but CBS All Access is pretty good. Maybe I would get it through there because I do like CBS All Access. But it's like Acorn TV, Tastemade. A lot of the channels were not that good. What Apple TV is going to allow you to do, which is kind of cool, is you can authenticate with your cable provider if you have a cable provider that makes or that's aligning with Apple TV. So there were a few. There's not a lot. I would love if you could authenticate in YouTube TV, even though I like the YouTube TV interface better. But you can authenticate your channels, and then it'll kind of show you in one interface what you could be watching, what's available from your cable provider, and you could see it. Now you can subscribe apparently here through this Apple TV channels to HBO, to Showtime, to Stars. The pricing was not announced for that, and that is a big part of this because you heard rumors leading up to it that it was going to be $10 per premium channel. So it'd be $10 a month, or $9.99 to be correct. $9.99 for HBO, $9.99 for Showtime, $9.99 for Stars. Now, overall, that's not a great deal. It is for HBO. If you can't bum an HBO Go subscription off a parent or a friend or a brother and share that. If you need to buy HBO on your own, it's an okay deal. It's not the best, but if you have to buy HBO Now on its own, it's $15 a month. If you get it through here, $10 a month. That's a nice savings, $5 off. Showtime, though, is basically $10 or $11, so getting it for $10 here doesn't make sense. And Stars, I feel like, can be had for cheaper than $9.99. So this is where I didn't understand, and then Apple not announcing the pricing was strange. When I was watching the demo, and the woman doing the demo was showing Showtime and how you could sign up for a free trial, I actually thought that Showtime said $10.99 in the demo really quick when they were jumping through the free trial, that your card would be charged $10.99 after the free trial. So if it's that, what's the difference? So you can get access to it. What I wanted for HBO, or what I wanted for Apple to do, was to use their power in the market, all the cash they have on hand. If they want people in this service, they should subsidize it. The real thing would have been to say, we're coming out with it, and it's going to be $6 a piece for HBO, for Showtime, for Stars. People will do that. People are going to go where it's cheapest. And if it's cheapest and they sign up and then now they're in your Apple TV interface and it's beautiful, they're going to stick there. And maybe they'll be there to buy more services down the road. And if Apple has to subsidize a couple of dollars across those services when they have to pay back to the services themselves, who cares? They got people. Think about how many services that companies will basically give for free just so that you can use their app. So I didn't understand it, and maybe clarity will come down the road on this. Maybe there actually will be a better pricing structure, but $10 across the board, paying $30 to Apple for for HBO, Showtime, Stars doesn't make sense. My idea is charge $6 a piece, because if you're paying $6 for Apple, I'm messing up all over the place. If you're paying $6 for HBO, that's like a $9 savings on what you would do for HBO Now. And the reason I'm saying $6 is because then what Apple should do is, if you buy all three, you're paying $15 a month, so that you're getting basically $1 off each service by bundling them. That to me would be what I would do. And then if it's such a wild success, that should be good news for Apple. So they didn't really change the world here with the Apple TV channels. Then they announced Apple TV Plus, and this is where they brought out all the Hollywood elites, from Spielberg to Reese Witherspoon to Jennifer Aniston to Steve Carell to Jason Momoa, all these people, and it felt so un-Apple. It felt like a jumping of the shark a little bit. It felt so un-Apple to have these folks on the stage, Oprah speaking for Apple in a realm that Apple doesn't quite understand themselves. And so it was weird to watch Apple kind of outsource a major announcement to another entity to this level, a huge conglomeration of entities in the form of Hollywood stars and tastemakers. So they announced a lot of shows, and these shows will apparently start hitting the streams in the fall. The Apple TV channels update apparently will happen in May, so I guess we'll start to see what that pricing is for those channels. But for the actual Apple TV Plus and the original programming that Apple's going to come out with all these stars, that's going to start. I think they've paid out something like $1 billion to this. That's going to start hitting the feeds in the fall. Now, here's what I have to say on this. We can't watch that and then go, oh, it's going to be terrible. What a joke. Apple thinks that they can take on all these original programmers and beat them at their own game, and they're going to do their kind of Apple taking bows to the level they do before they've even done it. Look, if the shows are good, people will hear about it, and friends will talk about it, and TV critics you love. When I talk about The New Yorker, I love Emily Nussbaum, who's the TV critic for The New Yorker. She's really good. When the people who matter start saying that a show is good, people will find it, and people will pay for it if they need to pay for it. So we have to allow that to happen. I mean, look, should I be paying for CBS All Access, which can be upwards of $10, I think, a month? Or $6 a month when you allow commercials? No, there's no reason for me to get it. I already have CBS. What do I need CBS All Access streaming? But I get it because The Good Fight is a tremendous show. The spinoff of The Good Wife. It is a tremendous show. One of the better shows that my wife and I watch. And so for as long as I'm watching The Good Wife, I'm subscribing, The Good Fight, I'm subscribing to CBS All Access. And the way CBS All Access does it is they release The Good Fight on a weekly basis. So they're stretching that subscription out for as long as that's there. Now, will I unsubscribe and then maybe resubscribe when the season ends and so we can binge a little better? Sure. But I'm paying for that service because the content is good. So if word gets out that these Apple shows are really good, we're going to subscribe in some form or fashion to watch them. We're going to buy them, or we're going to do a subscription plan to buy them. And maybe as Apple customers, we'll be able to watch them for free for at least a period of time, a certain amount of episodes, whatever the case is. So I don't want to poo-poo that part. It did feel weird, Apple outsourcing such big announcements to outside forces. Now, Tim Cook talking about the shows would be weird. The head of programming in a weird white jumpsuit would be weird. But it is what it is. It remains to be seen. And usually shows don't do amazingly well right off the bat because it's hard to do programming. Remember Netflix, how big House of Cards was for them when it was their first true original show? And it was really good. But a lot of people said it wouldn't even be on HBO. It was a little cheesy, but it was really good. And we all wanted it to do well. We all watched it hoping that it would do really well because it was important for Netflix to do well in original programming. And they've had hits and misses over time. They've spent massive amounts of money. Our subscription fees have started to go up because of those massive outlays. But we have a lot of content. And you think of Netflix now as an original content provider all these years later, after we thought of it as a way to watch back seasons of shows we really like from the networks and from cable. And so it takes time. And Apple has a big slate they're working on. They have a lot of good voices, good TV producers and showrunners in play. And it'll remain to be seen. We'll watch. And if it's bad, we'll move on. If it's good, we'll tell our friends and we'll all start watching and we'll probably pay. So that's kind of what I think of when I'm looking at that. So big announcements, and I think that I'm really excited mostly about the credit card, the Apple Card. I didn't think that was going to be the case. I'm excited enough about Apple News Plus because I jumped in feet first, or head first, I guess, feet and head first, belly flopped. Hopefully it doesn't flop for that. And it was funny because day 2 of the first official day news was up, it kept kicking you out of the app. So it looks like they got that fixed. A lot of people have probably used it, but I'm in on it. Apple's got to be in on services too. They need a way to get some recurring revenue that's not reliant on people buying their devices one time consistently. It's just not a sustainable model. It's been an amazingly sustainable and lucrative model for way longer than I think many people thought it would. But once the pace of innovation is just not happening with the devices, what we have are pretty fully realized kind of perfect prototypes of what these devices can be at this time. Then you got to get into services begrudgingly or excitedly, however it is. Apple did it, and whether they're late, whether they're early, whether they're on time, it'll remain to be seen. But they do have an advantage because they are in 1.4 billion pockets. All right, folks, it's been fun. We'll have a bunch of things coming up in the coming days and weeks as a lot of great things happen as we jump further into spring and towards summer and towards baseball and towards March Madness and towards the Masters. And content is always happening in the background. And I'm a father and things are going okay. We're heading into week 6 next week of the second born. Always a lot going on. So I'll talk to you later. Peace.